Five, four, three, two, one. All right, welcome back to edition 75 of the BBK podcast. This is your host, Brian Bowling. And as you may know, I'm doing this by myself today. And if you happen to be watching, which I don't think anybody is at this point, I am representing Mr. Brian Scalabrini and also Bookmaker. So I got everything covered for me here. I think I have a good reputation now. You'll listen to my opinion a little bit more now with all this gear on. So welcome back. Thanks for listening once again. I hope that you guys are getting ready for the Christmas season for those of you that celebrate. It's been, the past couple of years have been a little different for me as far as Christmas goes. I haven't really given too much of a crap since a couple of years ago. Well, I can't say I don't give a crap, but I don't have that Christmas spirit like I used to. As many of you know who followed me a couple of years ago, it was a little bit of a shitty Christmas season. My girlfriend at the time, now wife, the hospital had surgery on Christmas Eve, spent over 2 weeks in the hospital, and around the same time, my friend's nephew passed away at the age of 3, about a week before Christmas. So it's been really hard the past couple of years to get in the Christmas spirit. So I'm trying. I think it'll get to me as I see my family in the next couple of days, but it's just a reminder that I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make Christmas this great thing, but it's not always the best of times for people, especially if there's something bad that's happened around the holidays that, that we remember and that's kind of burned in our brains. We associate with that period of time. So, if you see somebody that's not in the Christmas spirit per se, there's just so much pressure to have a great time this season. I feel like you're either in the best of spirits or in the worst of spirits around this time of year. So, so that's the Christmas part of this. I avoided shopping as much as I could. I did the gift card route this year for the most part, and I just bought them today. And the only actual gift that was purchased online that I got was for my nephew. Otherwise, the wife took care of quite a bit of that. So God bless her. Okay, so I wanted to go over a little bit of just some lessons learned from this year. It's been I guess somewhat eventful. I really haven't been on as much. The new job doesn't have me on here as much. I've had to focus a little bit more on my work, and also afraid of clients maybe starting to Google search me. Perhaps I don't want to take that chance. So if you don't see me on Twitter responding to something you might have posted during the workday, there's a reason for that. I'll usually slide into your DMs and answer any questions you may have. So anyways. So yeah, lessons learned from 2015, and things that have changed as far as gambling goes. And instead of writing this, I usually been writing this in the past, the memorable bets thing I've done the past couple of years. I'll just go over it in the pod here instead of writing. I've just been really lazy with the writing aspect of things. And then I'll take there's some listener questions here. So okay, so as far as lessons learned goes, it's been there's been definitely a transition in my betting this year. I don't feel like I'm betting as much, and what I am betting is usually it's like a recommended from a certain people, and some of it's based on some people releasing models that I trust and have proven to work. And lately this has been the year of the first inning bets, so I'll go over that a little bit too. But I would say that I've had a lot more discipline this year. I don't know, in the past, I felt like I had to bet every day, and I felt like I probably had like 10, 20 bets a day. And, long term for me, I wasn't really gaining anything out of that because I would just be throwing darts. And I feel like I still throw darts every now and then when I'm bored, but I don't do it as much. And I feel like the discipline aspect of my betting has gotten a lot better this year, just because I haven't had the time to put the research into betting like I used to. So you'll see me on a given day that I'd say once or twice a week I'm not making a bet, which is very unusual. There's probably been uh, streaks of time where I've had at least one bet every single day for like 8 or 9 or 10 months. Who knows? So that's definitely one thing that's changed so far. Far as this is something I meant watching the games, and I know a lot of people watch games, and people are betting live and all that stuff. I honestly get no value out of betting live. I don't get value out of that, and I also don't get value out of watching games because I've been watching sports my whole life, and even with that and the betting aspect, being betting for about 7 or 8 years, my eye still isn't trained, especially with certain sports, to be able to gain value, discernible value in using something I watched today to apply to betting the next day. I feel like I get just as much out of looking at numbers, which there might be a delicate balance that people strike, but I've never really gained value out of watching games. So a lot of times now I'm just following games on an app. I don't know how you guys are, but I'm watching whatever shows on that the wife's watching, Chicago Fire, or whatever it might be, and following the games on an app as opposed to watching it live. And especially since a lot of those products that I'm betting on aren't like the most watchable products to begin with, and especially this time of year, NBA. I don't know how people could watch NBA and college games that they bet on, because it's just a heart attack 24/7, especially towards the end of games when teams either won't stop fouling or don't foul when you want them to. So that's my thoughts on the live, watching games live. Maybe if you watch games live and you get something out of it, good for you. I just, when I'm watching a game, I can tell who's good, who's not, but I can't apply games. Maybe somebody else can, that has like an eye for something, some kind of tell that a guy gives when he does something that I don't have that eye for it. So I mainly just consume my betting through just some stat digging. I don't have any models or anything like that. So all right, so that was so there we go. MLB first innings, and this is a product of, I want to say this was Spreadopedia that introduced me to this, and I believe he even told me that this was something that he got introduced to by Anonymous Gambler. And I don't want to get into how to apply the first inning bets and how to find value, but if you look enough at certain aspects of a baseball line, I don't think I need to spell that. You could find out what has value and what doesn't. And usually this year, it was the yes of a first inning that had value, and the postseason of 2015 was amazing. And I didn't want baseball to end, which is unusual for me because usually baseball is a money pit, and I usually want it to end and die and burn and anything else, like get hit by the train that goes by my apartment. So all right, so the first inning bets, definitely a big growth point of my bankroll this year. All right, and then this one is something that I've just gone through in the past couple of months. Is the perils of betting through a local. And many of you know it's my primary source of betting is through a local. And my one buddy, who's kind of the middleman, we had an issue like a couple months ago where to log in on Monday and see, expecting to have my account reset back to its normal amount to begin a week, as they reset it back to that amount, and it was at zero, and I was like, huh. And that actually ended up being the same week, and it was the same site that got that had a report on it in the New York Times, 365action.com, and I believe, let's see, JC Jet, I believe is one guy on Twitter here that had an issue where he had some money in there and couldn't get it out, and there's about $800 or $900 that the bookie, but luckily I got paid most of it in that little first inning run magic that I had in the last 2 or 3 months of the MLB season. So yeah, that's the perils of betting through a local. You have to worry about at any point in time it can be shut down. At any point in time, the local can just get up and run. My buddies owed about $2,500, and he's still trying to get a hold of the guys, as far as I know. So right now I'm using a guy on Twitter. I think you guys might know him, Mr. Blind Capper. So I've been up and down with him. I think almost about break even with him since October. So yeah, it's betting through locals it can be dangerous, especially in the credit aspect. I'm used to the credit aspect, so I'm not betting way over my head, but some people still can't handle the credit aspect of betting through a local, and that's a very dangerous thing. Let's see, did I touch base on everything with the links? So, one other thing, the risk of futures with locals, and I'll touch base on this on memorable bets of 2015 a little bit more, but when you're betting with locals, it's very dangerous to bet a future, especially if it's a season that's that's not going to be completed for the next 6 to 9 months, because you have no idea what's going to happen in that 6 to 9 month period where your book could just shut down. And I had a Dallas Stars future that went to the wayside that I was really disappointed in. Regardless of whether they win or not, I'm disappointed that the book shut down. So okay, so that was it as far as the local part goes. The no longer posting bets part of 2015. Yeah, I just haven't felt the need to post bets like I used to. I used to post it on a different account. I think the Bebo Knows, B_Bo Knows account, and I just don't have the time for it. And also, a lot of these plays that I'm making aren't like really my plays. They're, I might be telling someone on a certain thing, and it's not my. I'm not gonna claim it as my own. So, and I know still really get anything out of it. I mean, if you get something out of it, great. I mean, from what I can tell when I'm watching people post bets, at least in my 4 years on Twitter, it seems like the people who are most eager to post bets on Twitter are either touts or people that might aspire to be touts because they have the idea. A lot of people that post bets, and if you post bets for different reasons, good for you. But most people that I've seen post bets have ulterior motives, and they're more interested in the idea of people knowing that they're good bettors rather than actually the money that they're making off the bets. And in some people's cases, I doubt that they're making the bets, especially in touts' cases, because you don't need to flash money to show how much you made. If you made a certain amount of money, you don't. Well, I don't know. I don't get anything out of that. I don't. To each their own, I guess. But I just find it to be a waste of my time. Like I said, I don't post a lot of my original bets anyways. A lot of my bets are lately have been like tailing something, or I just haven't had the time to put in like I used to. So all right, and as far as 2015 goes, I've picked up a few followers, and I've also started following a lot more people started to notice this year a little bit more than last, the amount of people that I follow now that are in the business of exposing touts. And I got to say, you guys are doing God's work, because I don't have the time or the energy to go and do this. I mean, my real name's out there. Not that I'm worried about that. I mean, I'm probably too passive, anyways, to be battling people on Twitter to begin with, even if I was on a handle that didn't contain my name. But for those of you that fight the good fight and are trying to get rid of, all touts, like, there's probably like a small percentage of people that might be considered quote unquote good touts, but a lot of people, even touts that are considered nice guys, can still be pieces of shit. But people will say, "Oh, this guy's a nice guy." Well, no, I'm not. I'm not even speaking of anyone in general, but I've seen that quite a bit when I'm reading like a bunch of people talk about, "Oh, this person's good." He's a good guy, and like, lying about his picks or lying about his record or doing something deceptive to get sales, then he's a piece of shit. I don't care how nice he is. Those people hide behind that nice guy persona, and it's bullshit. But that's how they get their sales, and but the people that battle those people on Twitter and expose them and get blocked by them, it's great stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed watching that play out, and especially as of late, a few people like Ghostface Killer, and I think Slim is doing it or not, but the guys that'll actually go in to tell people to, like, hey, DM real quick, big fan of yours, and then they'll like make up some bullshit story saying, oh, my wife's gonna leave me if you don't if we don't win this pick tonight, and these people are like, like Glenn Ross, they're always be closing, like they're so focused on that end sale that you could say pretty much whatever you want, like, and they'll just their end goal is to get that sale. They'll that's why you'll see how desperate some of these people are for sales. And I find it great to have these people exposed for the scum of the earth that they are. Just a lot of gross people out there selling picks, and that gets me to my next thing. I don't know if any of you guys who will eventually be listening to this actually buy picks, but I gotta ask you why you're buying picks, because not only are there just so many resources out there that you could use that are free, that you could learn things on your own, and would be much better for you long term if this is something you want to make some side cash off of down the road. I mean, not saying you'll profit, but make cash here and there, as opposed to already starting down in the hole, whatever your tout costs a month or a year. I don't see the value. I don't see why people even spend a dime on touts. That's my my thoughts on that. But I don't get it. I don't get how you guys could buy picks from touts. I just like I said, most of these people aren't the best of characters. Most of these people are paying off their own gambling debts, or like, it's just sad. And not, if you do buy picks, I'd be curious to see what value you get out of them, and if you actually have a tout that actually tells you how to get better at betting, because I don't feel like you're going to learn anything by a tout's just giving you a pick. Like, not to say that you need a detailed write-up on why a guy wanted to bet this certain thing, but maybe a few little pointers here and there, like that could help you long term. So whatever. I've never bought a pick. I never will buy a pick. So that's that. All right. So I mentioned the touts part there. Oh yeah, and the last part here. and this is something I just added to the outline earlier today, is the mainstream media and touts. And there's quite a bit of mainstream media that is getting into the gambling craze. I think gambling is becoming a little more socially acceptable, and with that, gets a little the hobby gets a little more mainstream attention. Scott Van Pelt's one of them that the new Sports Center highlights on a nightly basis, and it's pretty cool. It's actually one of the few times that I don't mind actually turning on ESPN outside of a game. So for that, I appreciate that. But the problem is that, he's not the biggest culprit, Scott, but there's so much mainstream media people that have a voice on Twitter that promote the scum of the earth, like I was mentioning before. That it's dangerous. It's the problem. The dilemma is that the people that want no part of sharing their knowledge of betting are like professional bettors. They're not gonna. There's no reason for the average professional bettor to even give you an iota of insight into what makes him or her a successful gambler, because that is their edge. That's how they make a living off of betting on sports. So there's no incentive for them to share any bit of knowledge that they have, because it's going to hurt their bottom line. Now, that leaves the door open for people that have something to sell. And a lot of times these people are the most accessible to the media. So that's why you see these people going on these shows and spouting off bullshit, and being on these shows and just being everywhere. That they gain their credibility based on being on these shows, and they'll put it in their timelines, and then you'll see them interacting with these people on Twitter, and it really doesn't do a good service to the hobby that we enjoy, some of us as a profession. So that's something that I've found to be a little unsettling, is the fact that the mainstream media, for the good that it could possibly do, isn't. But then again, like I said, maybe that's part of the reason is that the people that could help push it don't really have an incentive to. There's no reason for most people to share what makes them successful bettors. I try to bring people on this podcast that bring an insight that could possibly help you with certain aspects of betting, but there's not too many people that are just going to share everything they know about what makes them a successful bettor. I mean, there's some generalities that I'm sure you could pick up on over time, like having multiple books and all that good stuff, but yeah, that's just something that makes me a little queasy, is just a relationship that mainstream media has with the scum part of gambling, because it doesn't really promote the hobby. But then again, I don't know. Maybe that makes lines. Maybe that makes lines better for the people that are better. I don't know. But did I touch base on everything there? Yeah, I think the mainstream media part that I didn't mention is I touched base on it, but I just want to say circle jerk. Yeah, it's a big circle jerk. We're all probably involved in some kind of circle jerk on Twitter, but in that aspect, the circle jerk is just immense, and it's hard to follow, and I don't like it. All right, so I think that covers what I wanted to touch base on with that. The memorable bets of 2015, like I said, this is normally something I'll write, but since I don't really feel like writing in the next week or so, figured I would just talk about it here on the pod. And it's mainly my criteria for memorable bets of 2015, as it is with any year. I can't just look back on my sport, something that stands out. I have to be able to remember it in order for it to be a memorable bet. I can't just look back on the spreadsheet and say, Oh yeah, I remember that. It has to be something that's ingrained in my memory. So first one, and I'm going in chronological order here. Green Bay across the board in the NFC title game, and that's first half, full game, money line, and then team total over for first half and full game. And I was almost able to sweep all of this. But if many of you guys remember this particular game, especially in the first half, the Packers were really, really conservative. And if you're a Packers fan, you're probably not gonna like to even think about that particular game because that game was in hand, and they should have won that game, and they didn't. The fact that they were even trailing in the later stages of the fourth quarter had me a little queasy that I could lose my plus whatever it was 8 bet that I had. I don't remember 7.5 or 8. But yeah, that was a game that stung the money line. I felt like it was within grasp. But if you've been betting long enough, you should really know that these things are never really over until the 000 hits, because shit happens. And I guess I've become numb to losses. I see a lot of people on Twitter that don't handle losses very well, and I don't know if Twitter helps the rage out as opposed to punching a hole in the wall. You're kind of punching a metaphorical hole in the Twitter wall. That's probably a better use of your fists or your hands, I should say. Because I know I've seen people. I had a friend break a phone over a lost bet, and he was actually betting on simulated Madden games. So so people have rage issues when they bet, and I've definitely seen that. But I've gotten a lot more calm when I bet, and that was definitely a perfect example of anything can happen, and whatever. All right, so the next one here, this one's college basketball. Michigan State 75-1 midseason future bet, and they made the Final Four. They didn't win it, obviously, but the reason I find this memorable, and I think this establishes a new way of me handling futures in the future, and it's more of a stance of that it has to be pretty much life-changing money for me to hedge a bet. And the fact that I only threw $20 on Michigan State 75-1 to win 1,500, they were playing Duke and in the Final Four, and I was pondering it for from the time that the game ended on Sunday until the Final Four actually began. And I started thinking about it. I'm just like, what's the worst that happens? I lose $20? I didn't know how to hedge it anyways, because Duke was minus, 250 to the money line. So if I lose that hedge, then the next game was either going to be against Kentucky or Wisconsin. And, I was projecting Kentucky, and that would have been another, how much on the money line? I don't know what it would have been, but I just at that point in time I said, you know what? I think this is just going to be my new philosophy as far as hedging goes, and it's going to be unless it's life-changing money, and I can't find a reason to hedge. So, all right. So the next one here is another future. This is the biggest cash of my young betting career. I guess not young betting career, but it was a bet that I made before the NBA season began last year. That was the coach Budenholzer for Coach of the Year, and that was 75-1. And it was the only coach that I bet. There was a few that I tossed out, and I think I got the idea around the time that I had Seth Partnow on the podcast to preview the 2014-2015 NBA season, and he mentioned Atlanta as one of his surprise teams. He might have even mentioned it the summer before when we did a finals podcast around then, and it just stood out. I was like, all right, 75 to 1. It was probably the best odds for a team that had an over-under in the win total, an over-under of around 41 wins or something like that. They obviously easily eclipsed that. And I was getting a little worried because the Golden State Warriors were just tearing shit up. And, I was consuming so many different articles trying to figure out who people were going to be voting for, Steve Kerr or Budenholzer. And, Budenholzer pulled it out. I was pretty happy with it. I don't know. I don't see any futures like that coming on the horizon that I could see myself being able to beat that. So I'll enjoy that for this year. It was a pretty nice hit. So, all right, bet number 4, and this is on the opposite spectrum of the futures cycle, and this is Jorge Soler, 75 to win the home run crown. And I forgot to look this up before the podcast, but I don't even know if he got double-digit home runs, to be honest with you. I took this bet, I think, on a suggestion of Blind Capper, which was probably my first mistake. So, that I don't really know how much more I could say about that, but it was just memorable for the wrong reasons. It was pretty much dead on arrival once I think he was stuck on 3 or 4 home runs for I don't know how long. He might have been hurt for a while. I don't know if he got sent to the minors, but yeah, that was pretty much pissing into a fan right there. All right, the next one. This is another bad bet, but I don't discriminate. Atlanta Hawks series bet versus Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then having the audacity to I wouldn't say double down, but definitely added to my series bet after Atlanta lost Game 1, and Atlanta was never really competitive in that series, and I think the series odds to start were like plus 180 or plus 200. I don't even know. It was all I know is it was a disaster of a bet, and it was memorable for the wrong reasons, similar to the whole area. All right, number 6 here. This is Tampa Bay Lightning future. I think I got them at 12 to 1 part of the 14-15 season, and I bet 2 other teams, but the Lightning made it to the finals, and they played the hometown Chicago Blackhawks. And as you may know, I don't really have much against my home teams if I have money against them in one way or another. I didn't really have money against them per se, but once the Blackhawks played a team involving my future, I had no problem rooting against the Hawks. Especially a lot of the fans here, I can't handle. I don't know if it's me being a curmudgeon, get a man and telling people to get off my lawn. I don't get into the fan aspect of sports as much as I used to, and maybe that's a part of me that is lost. And maybe I envy the people that can still be fans. It gets in the way of my betting sometimes. It can get in the way of my betting if I approach it from a fan perspective. But anyways, the Lightning were 12 to 1, and that was it's pretty close. They had a 2-1 lead in the series, and that was another time where could I have hedged? Yeah, maybe I could have, but I won, and I just wanted to play it out. It was $50. If I lost, I lost. If I won $600. So it lost, whatever, another $50 down the shitter. It happens, but I would that one obviously memorable just because it involved the hometown team and rooting against them. Definitely something that is hard for a lot of people, I've noticed, to do, separate the fan, but something that I find essential because I don't see how you could be objective on a bet if it involves your team. If you're betting on your team all the time, I find it hard to trust your assessment of the team. If I see that you bet for and against them, then I might be a little more. I might believe that you have a little more objectivity involving your team. So, all right, the number 7 one, and this involves my first inning bet of memorable note out of 2 here on the list, and that would be the first inning of the All-Star game. And everyone knows that's the game that matters. So I bet on the plus 140 that was offered at my book, and the over/under was 7.5. And I think I just gave away the logic bus, but that's way too high of a price to pass up our results or not. People will look at the result, and obviously that's a part of betting. You obviously need the bet to win long term to for you to make it. Also long term, you want to get the best of prices in any bet. So if you told me in a 1,000 bet sample I got the best of the number 600 times, I would gladly take my chances that I had a somewhat successful year. It's not always going to work out where you get the best number, so you could get the best number and still lose, obviously. But if you give me a 500, 1,000 game sample and I'm getting the best number 55, 60% of the time, I'll be happy. So yeah, that was one. The Mike Trout let off the game, All-Star game with a home run. Easy peasy right there. All right, so the next one, and this kind of goes back to the local part of things, but back in July, I made a bet on the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup at 80 to 1. And this was a tale of so many sports. And pretty much within a week after I made the bet, maybe 2 weeks after the bet, it fell all the way down to like 30 to 1 at the local. And this is the book of mine that got shut down. And the bet never got transferred to another site. The guy who was the local disappeared. So I'm going to be quite upset if the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup this year, because that would have been the new personal high for a bet cashing. That one was 25 to win. And so I've never sniffed anything quite like that before. So, it'll be bittersweet if Dallas makes a run. And I've seen it a lot else this year from the limited hockey that I've consumed on Twitter. I really haven't watched any hockey, but that one will sting if Dallas makes a run, just because of the odds that I got them at. And that's just a lesson learned. Watch out for those futures bets when you're betting with a local. Okay, the next one, this is number 9 out of 10. Ole Miss plus 295 money line bet versus Alabama on my wedding day. And this was just one of those bets that I was just looking for, a money line. I think I was having a good week to that point. I was looking for a good college football money line that just stood out, that I could follow towards the end of my wedding day. And also, I'm going to be going out afterwards, which we did, and was able to watch the end of that Ole Miss Alabama game, and the bet hit. It was pretty good way to close off the wedding day, and just a day of great memories all around. But as far as the betting aspect goes, that one couldn't have asked for a nicer hit, especially, and that ended up being Bama's only loss to this point. So that's another reason why it's memorable, I guess. So, but the last one, and it's also based around wedding, of course, except it's honeymoon. It was the first inning line involves in the Cubs wild card game, and that was kind of self-defeating in itself that I'm tweeting on my honeymoon. And I can't really argue with that But as far as that goes, the line just kept going up and up and up. The yes line kept going up and up and up because people were thinking, oh, it's Arrieta versus Cole, over under of 5.5. The line started out at like, I want to say the night before it was like plus 170, and it got up to like 210 plus 210 before I fired, and then later on in the day I saw it go up to like as high as plus 240, and I found out what my max bet was for first inning bets based on how high it went. My max ended up being with $250. So on my honeymoon, we're watching the Cubs Pirates game in the local bar, and within the first two batters, Schwarber hit a double in the corner that drove in Fowler, and that was a hell of the start of a hell of a run season. Yes bets hitting. If anyone was betting those this past postseason, you know how great the postseason was for that. So that covers the memorable bets part. I do have some questions from Twitter land here that I wanted to get to. Before I do that, I'm going to grab a beer here. This is a beer that I can thank my buddy Tim for, Brickstone Brewery. It's based in Bourbonnais. I won this thanks to a fantasy game that we played earlier this year. So there was one good thing that came out of this year. So, all right. The first question was from Ms. Which podcast guest do you think hurt your reputation the most? Myself, Kunk, or Lou? I don't know. I think that would assume that I have a good reputation to begin with. I don't know how people perceive the podcasts. The feedback that I got from yours, Grooven, has been probably the best. It's the worst as far as reputation goes. If we're going to go on the basis of, if we're trying to appease their heads of, gambling, that control gambling. If big heads ended up listening to that podcast, that probably didn't help. My pocket somewhere. No, trust me. There's no chance I'm ever going to gain a gig in any aspect of media that promotes gambling, because you really need to be involved in the circle jerk to get a job like that. So, anyways, Grooven, I guess I'll just say you probably hurt my reputation the most, if you want to assume that I had a reputation to begin with. All right, the next question was from Bellevue Dog. If by federal law you had to pay one tout for picks, who would it be? I don't know. If there was a tout that you could just purely fade, that hit better than 54, 55%, have to hit a higher percentage if you're actually paying the tout. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. I don't out record. So if there is a tout that hits at about 46, 45%, that would be profitable to purely fade, then that'd probably be the route that I would go. I don't do a good job of looking at these records. So if Bellevue, if you know of any particular touts that hit it around that percentage, I don't know if you keep track of that. That would be the route that I would go. That's not really much of an answer, but then again, I really don't pay attention to how well certain touts do. I know certain touts are, there might be certain guys that are really good at picking one sport, but if they just stuck to that sport, they'd probably be good touts. But most touts are, year round, shouldn't be, because they could barely one sport, yet alone 4 or 5. So yeah, if you know of any that hit like 45%, 46%, that would be that'd be who I buy from, and that would be strictly to fade. So, all right, And this is from JC Jet, and he didn't really ask much of a question. He just said how much alcohol intake, and I don't know if he meant how much alcohol intake I would imbibe. And to be honest, I got so caught up in talking, and I didn't really have. I'm so used to having breaks in the pod where I'm the one listening to somebody talk that I just one now, and I just promoted it. It's a double pale ale here, and it's pretty good. It's the first one though. Maybe more alcohol involved, but anyways, all right. Ghost Fade Killer. This is the first of two questions involving people that I should book. Why haven't you booked Top Tennis Capper yet? It seems like a good chance for Ben to boost his brand, and maybe if I can get some free baristas from him, that could happen. I honestly don't know how I could have a podcast with. I mean, based on the stuff I see tweeted, I hope you guys understand. I know a lot of these questions are tongue in cheek, but I have to be able to have a conversation with someone, and I could look at people's tweets and tell whether or not I can have a good podcast with them, just based on what they tweet. Because I imagine most people speak like they tweet, and I don't know. I don't see that happening, Ghost Fade. I'm sorry. Mr. Clear about the Tweety PGF pod, and yeah, as much as I'd like to BS around that and say, yeah, that podcast is right around the corner, I couldn't bring myself to those depths of I don't know. I can't even think of the adjective that could quite just be if I had those people on a single pod. Never. Sorry, John. Right. The next one, this is one of the only serious questions here, I think. Alex K47, pre-bet superstitions, favorite sport to play, how gambling betting affects everyday life. So those are good questions. The pre-bet superstitions, I don't really think I have any. Some people feel like they can't if they're doing well, but when they turn it on and it all of a sudden goes bad, I'm going to turn it off. I'm not quite like that. I wouldn't say I'm very superstitious in that regard. Then again, I really don't watch many of my bets live like I used to. So pre-bet superstitions, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have any. I guess the only thing that I do now betting-wise that I try to do is avoid like last-second bets where I usually make my advance, so I'm not pondering over them. I don't really think that's superstition, but I guess it's style of betting. Favorite sport to play? The first inning bets were just great, so great that I'm really looking forward to MLB for the first time. And it used to be the easy choice, but I haven't been betting NFL as much, so the MLB first innings are a lot of fun. And then how gambling betting affects everyday life. Yeah, checking my phone all the time. That includes whether I'm with the public. Yeah, I'm sure that people are wondering why I'm disconnected from. I know I've been called out on it. I know the wife has said, so and so was saying you were on your phone the entire night, and I was like, well, man, I found the game that the money that I had on it to be more interesting than any potential conversation I would have with some. In that regard, I guess social. It's not socially enhancing. So yeah, I guess it can affect, and it's probably not for the best of ways, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm not really interacting with too many people. All right, so we had a couple questions here, both from necessary paper, and one of them was, and this involved concepts, thick slicing racist / xenophobic, and that's in quotations, rants, learn Doc Hemingway memes, and Spreadopedia Cuban baseball takes. And the Spreadopedia Cuban baseball takes I would have to marry only because of the concept of how loyal, how dedicated Cuban baseball players have to be to come to America, or at least back in the day, taking the rafts here. If they're willing to take the raft here to play a game they love, I'm all about love, so that would be what I would marry. As far as love, let's see, I covered the marry there. I would probably kill thick slicing racist xenophobic rants. I actually met thick slicing, and I don't really remember too many of those rants in person. I don't know if it was because we were out in public, but maybe that's why I would say I would fuck that, because I don't know if I'm not sure if what he is on Twitter is an exaggeration of who he is. I know probably what some people is, but Thick's actually a pretty good dude from the 2 hours that I actually met him. So I guess that leaves the killing of Hemingway meme. So sorry, Learn Doc. And the last question here: gun to head, you need one winning pick from a tout. He covered Tommy G, Philly Godfather, Tweety Dimes, Johnny Detroit, Kelly. The odds are, if I have a gun to my head, it's probably involving Philly Godfather ratting me out for something. So I guess by default it would be him, just because if I was in that situation, odds are it was because of him ratting me out for something. So I think that covers it all. I don't think I left anything out. Is there anything? No, I don't think. I think I caught everything. So for the few of you that actually tune into this, thanks. I'll be releasing this MP3 version shortly. But everyone have a great Christmas. Next week will be. Forgot his exact handle. Sizzle Sports. He's gonna hate me for this. Sizzling Sports. He's going to discuss some of the legal aspects, some legal cases that are going on that involve people that we're familiar with, as well as some other jazz. So that'll be the last podcast of 2015. So everyone, once again, thanks for listening. Have a great Christmas. Happy New Year, if I forget to mention it next week. But have a great holiday with your family. Enjoy yourselves, and take care.